Sound of Metal is probably a film that flew under many people's radars. It definitely did mine. It's a film that's well worth your time. Find out my thoughts after the intro. Hi, my name's Drew and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. Today I'm talking about the film Sound of Metal. As mentioned in the intro, I'm not sure if many people are aware of this film. I didn't even take notice of it at all, but very recently Amazon snatched it up and put it on their Prime Video service. And after I heard a few comments about it, also because it has a sort of personal note for myself, for my experiences, I was interested to see this film. What is it about? The Sound of Metal, the name itself refers to two things, you could say actually. Primarily it's about a metal band, a metal musician, a drummer to be very specific, played by Riz Ahmed. The name of the character is Ruben. That is one aspect, in my opinion, of the Sound of Metal, what the name is about. The other is, it's about hearing loss and replacing that hearing with a cochlear implant, so that replaces your hearing, and the resulting hearing from that is very metallic. So I believe that they are alluding to that as well, the sound of metal, as in the way that people with a cochlear implant hear their surroundings. So, as mentioned, it's about a band. This drummer Ruben, he is in a band with his girlfriend, played by Olivia Cook. Her name in the film is Lou. They have this sort of experimental, artsy metal band, I'll call it. And what happens is that it's just very suddenly Ruben loses his hearing. He just hears this loud sort of siren-y noise. I suppose it's a bit like tinnitus, where you've got this constant droning noise. He goes to see a doctor about it, who informs him that he's only got about 20 to 30% of his hearing still intact. So he advises him to do his utmost to keep that hearing, to not lose that as well. Unfortunately, he seems to be very determined to keep his band going, keep the tour going. So he plays another show and he completely loses his hearing through that. And the film majorly is about his journey to regain a sort of line in his life, to sort of steady the ship, to find his way again. He learns sign language and he also has the prospect of getting a cochlear implant which would replace his hearing. That is the basic gist of it. You can't really be spoilery about this film because in essence not much happens to that in many events. It's about the character, it's about his journey and growth. So typically, I always say I'm spoiler free. In this case, there's not really much you can spoil, I feel. Also, I must say, because the film, in my opinion, was very predictable as far as the plot was concerned, I predicted how it was going to end about halfway through, if not earlier. So that was a bit unfortunate, I must say. So the script was a bit weak in that sense, but overall, it's a very great story, and you really feel for Ruben on this journey where he's torn between losing hope and finding it again. You do not have many characters in this film. I already talked about Ruben and Lou. The only other person I would mention is a man played by Paul Racy. The name in the film is Joe, and he is a leader of a deaf community that takes Ruben in and teaches him how to adapt to his new life without hearing. Unfortunately though, Ruben is, I feel, the only person who really has development in the story. I mean, yes, it is primarily focused on him, but still I feel that it's a missed opportunity just to develop the other characters. His girlfriend Lou, she's absent for most of the film, which I feel is not quite realistic to me. Just to explain, what happens is Ruben comes into this deaf community and they have these roles where ideally he should be away from the people he knows. He has to hand in his phone, his car keys, all these things. I don't quite understand why he just couldn't or was not allowed to keep contact with his girlfriend. Surely that would help support him in this new situation. That didn't make sense to me. And although you have the leader of the community, Joe, who has his moments too, there's still not really much we know about him. And talking about the community themselves, you see there's a school for deaf people, for instance. You see how they learn, how they teach, how they experience their world. And I feel there's a missed opportunity there too to just show more of their stories, how the typical things that they face in everyday life, situations, whatnot, would be a great way to educate people, to destigmatize it. Focus is on Ruben, as I mentioned, and Riz Ahmed does a great job here portraying him. I like the actor, I've seen him before. I liked him in Venom. I like Venom, yes, I know, very unpopular opinion maybe. I thought it was a lot of fun, and he was great in it as the villain. He's also great, probably the first time I saw him was in Four Lions, which was a really, really funny film. But he does a great job here, and he really makes you feel the way he is torn. Like I say, it's about him losing hope because he feels like his life is slipping away from him. Then he's told by the first doctor he meets about this cochlear implant, and he finds his hope that way, wants to restore his hearing, and that is basically what he's fighting for, what he's striving for throughout the film. And the portrayal is excellent, so you really feel for him, his anger, his despair, and yet you see the hope when he's talking about various things, that how he's trying to get there and how he's improving his life, etc. So it is really good. The other standout thing from this film is the sound design, because they really put you in Ruben's shoes. So not all the time, but for very many scenes you're experiencing sound from his perspective. So you might not hear anything at all, or you'll just hear muffled sounds. Later on in the film, when he does get these cochlear implants, you experience the way he hears, which is a very metallic sound and very distorted at times. If you're used to hearing from birth, it is definitely probably a very scary experience to have such a drastically different hearing all of a sudden, and that is definitely something that really stands out in this film. So you've got great performance by Riz Ahmed, and you've got the sound design just of the whole film. It's used very well to really make you pay attention to stuff. We also have scenes where Ruben is in the deaf community, and we are really in his shoes because at the beginning he does not speak sign language at all. He does not use sign language, doesn't know it, and yet everyone around him is using sign language, and so he has got no idea what they're talking about, all these people around him, and you can also tell that it makes him really nervous. Obviously, it's a very natural thing in these kind of situations. Where just everyone around you is talking a different language, you feel that somehow everyone is maybe mocking you or all these things, and you can see that in his eyes. Obviously they're not doing that, but it's very uncomfortable for him. I feel it's good that they did not give any subtitles, for instance. They could have done that. They could have added subtitles for people who don't speak sign language so that we would know what the people are talking about. But I like that we are in Ruben's shoes. We are just as lost as he is in that situation, which is very good to make you really empathise with it all. I do have criticisms with this film. First of all, being a metal fan myself, which you may have noticed from the various t-shirts I'm wearing today, it's a Kill Switch Engage one. It's a very small thing, it's a very petty thing, but this film also got the attention of various people in the metal community, and we were like, oh great, there's a film about metal music and that. And then it only plays, I must say, a very small part of the film. Yes, he is a musician and that's the life he wants to get back to, but the actual music itself is only a very small part. It's only really in the start, and I'll be honest, it's not my kind of type. It's too artsy for me, too experimental. I do like the singing to be sort of in the rhythm with the rest of the music and not just doing its own thing where the singing and the music are separate to each other, because that's what the song, I think it was one song really that you heard in the film, that's what it felt like anyway. I mean, again, this is very nitpicky, but still, as a metal fan, I was a bit disappointed about that. Could have just expanded on that maybe a bit more. It would have been very nice in my opinion. The second thing, and this is actually very, very personal to me, is the thing about the cochlear implants, because my stepson has got cochlear implants. He received these implants while he was a baby, so I have very close experiences with all this situation, while not having been affected myself I have someone in my family who does wear these implants. And it is a very interesting topic. I was not aware of any of this, I must say, before I met my stepson. I knew nothing about all these situations that people are in, if when it comes down to even just small things like a definition of what we want to be called. But one thing that I did not quite like in this film is the cochlear implant is, I feel, portrayed in a bad way. This film, just to put it briefly, Ruben is in the deaf community, and they do explain, and this is what I have learned of the deaf community in Austria as well, they want people to not feel like being deaf is a handicap. They don't want them to feel belittled, or they don't want them to feel less like any other people just because they are deaf, which I fully agree with. Regardless of which handicap you have, if you have any at all, you should not be made to feel less than anyone else, and you definitely should not be like that. But what I have learned is that they are very, very defensive about this. So like in Ruben's case, he is told that if he gets these implants, he will be exiled from the community, he will be shunned by them, which I don't think is a good approach. I don't like that. While I get that, yes, they are proud of being the way they are and living how they do, which is great, I don't think they should exclude other people for just not being exactly the same way as they are in their beliefs about being deaf. And my personal experience reflects this, because my stepson, like I say, he has cochlear implants, but it's not like, and I think this is where the issue mostly comes from, that I would assume that often it happens where children or people get cochlear implants and then they just focus on spoken language and that is it. But in the case of my stepson, for instance, he went to a specialised school and he also learned sign language, and to this day he uses both. So he uses spoken language and uses sign language, and eventually, if he wants to, maybe someday he will decide that he doesn't want these implants anymore and he'll take them off and won't wear them again. If he does, he is perfectly free to do so. He does have the tools to walk this world via the sign language, for instance. So I feel that should be the correct approach. Just building a community out of it. It's not like these are the people who speak, these are the people who don't speak, they only use sign language. It shouldn't be that way. It should be everyone works together. I am for these implants. In the film, it is true how they are depicted. I was very shocked myself the first time when I heard it. Went to the Technical Museum in Vienna and they had an exhibit on these cochlear implants, and you were able to hear how people with cochlear implants hear. And my best description of it is, as you hear it in the film as well, it is very metallic. It sounds very cold, very sort of, when somebody's sort of like razor sharp noises. It's yes, very metallic, I would call it. They had, for instance, a piece of classical music, and listening to it, it sounded like some really, some sort of heavy metal actually, but some really, really intense ones. So again, if you are a person who was born hearing and then you switch over to these, I could imagine that it is a very scary experience, like it is for Ruben in the film. So that is definitely realistic. But in the case of my stepson, for instance, who was born without hearing, this is the only hearing he has. So not only will it not be as scary for him, I believe, and we do talk about this, and he is happy that he has them. It has opened a whole world to him. He has friends in his school. They use sign language, they use spoken language, they switch, they do all sorts of things. One of the things that he can do because of these implants is he can play computer games with many friends who don't speak sign language, and he can do that. These implants allow him to do that. And just yesterday we asked him, and he has said he's really happy to have these implants. So I feel that, okay, this was the story they wanted to tell, this was Ruben's story, this was just what it was like for him. Okay, fine. But I do feel it's a missed opportunity to show maybe a more balanced view of the whole thing. Also of the deaf community, because like I say, they should have used this chance, I feel, to show what their life is like or what struggles they go through, because they are probably shunned by other people in society. So I feel there's a missed opportunity here, because I really enjoyed seeing how they learn and just what things they still enjoy, because obviously there are many things that you can enjoy regardless of who you are, what you look like, and what handicaps you may have. This is obviously very, very personal. If you're interested, I recommend that you research the topic. For those who want it, I also think it's a great idea. For those who think it's a bad thing to do it, fine. Everyone should have the choice. Like I say, my stepson also has a choice. If at some point later in his life, maybe when he's 30 or 40, maybe he'll suddenly decide he does not want to use these anymore. Fine, he'll have the opportunity to do so. But I don't feel it's correct to say this is bad and this is bad. You should try and make everything work. Give people choice. I think that that's the right way forward. I hope this doesn't seem too preachy, but like I said, this is really personal to me, so that was very, very unique. Nonetheless, the film is still very, very good. You should definitely watch it, alone for the sound design and for Riz Ahmed's acting. It's a wonderful story. Tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. Like and share this video, that would make me very happy. Subscribe to the channel for more review videos from Flying Wiener, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.